Hey everybody, Jesse here again. Going to show you some updates to the Jaguar project. Spent the other weekend out on a mountain bike, so didn't get a whole lot of work done since we weighed the engine, but we do have the cylinder heads off. So I'll show you how we went about doing that here in a garage with no special tools, and the techniques that I used and how to save some cost on that if that's what you're looking for. If I was a regular Jaguar engine rebuilder, obviously I would invest the money in proper tools and make your life a little bit easier. But in the meantime, we'll start off with a joke today. So, what's the difference between a Ford and a golf ball? You can drive a golf ball 200 yards. Alright, let's get to this engine. Alright, so here is the block of the engine. Now, the Jaguar V12 is an open deck block. Now this is important because of the way they designed it. Then the way that the cylinder heads mount to the engine, it can become very difficult to remove. If you can see here, this particular one has a lot of corrosion and muck and nastiness on it. Here, I can even take it off on my finger. So when you go to remove the cylinder head, all this muck and nastiness clogs up the hole in the cylinder head that these studs go through. So it becomes very difficult to take the cylinder head off. It is not so much that the head gasket is sticking. As you can see, there is very little sticking that the head gasket actually had. This is a clean surface. This has not been prepped. So we'll show you how I remove this using some random stuff from the hardware store. Okay everybody, here's the cylinder head. Now, the holes here in this cylinder head are where the studs go through and clamp onto the block. So now the usual tool that people would use is a large piece of metal, sheet metal type, thick sheet metal that goes all the way across with holes at each one of these locations, these tower locations. This is where the cam goes. Cam will sit in here. Cam sits right in here. And you bolt that down to these here, the studs, your tower studs. And then you take and you push on the cylinder head bolts themselves. So I used just a cheap little pieces of steel here. They're held together on each side by a bolt, and on the other side as well, a bolt, so they don't separate. And then you can see on these there's a nut, and so that nut, what you do is you take that nut and you would put it directly on and then you would take that nut and you would put it on the cylinder head stud. That would be right about where that is. And then you just simply move the bolt in the upwards direction towards the support, and that movement will push the bolt down, and pull the head up. And so I've used this piece and I put it on several of these on each stud that you can get to push on the cylinder head with. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is how many I used. There's many ways to do it, but that's how the common technique is. That's how I did it. Total cost is maybe $20 in parts from the hardware store. If I had to do it again, I would replace this with an actual bolt. I wasn't thinking when I went to the hardware store and I just bought this, said small thread will work, and then I ended up having to squeeze this side with pliers because you don't want these to spin is the big thing. This should be stationary. You only want the nut to spin, otherwise you might mar up your top of your cylinder head bolt, and you don't want to do that. You want to be careful not to strip the threads as well, so don't let it slide off. Again, if I was to do another engine, I would probably build something a little bit more substantial, a little bit easier to work with, if I ever get into doing these more commonly. So 2 other tools I use to disassemble his heads is the cam holder tool. This I bought from jagbits.com. Okay, so this piece there's a notch in the cam. It's kind of hard to see, but that lines up with this. Okay, and then as your cam's sitting in here, these 2 little, what look like vampire fangs, they hold the cam from spinning so you can take your bolts off. And the bolts go right in here. Okay? So the other tool we did use for this project is the timing chain. Now, there's another special tool that the Jaguar manual calls out. Again, if you're ever doing this kind of work, always make sure you've got some kind of manual, or you've done it before with some friends, somebody knowledgeable. But so what I did for the cam tool is I took a J hook like this. It started off this way, and I trimmed it up so that it looks like this. Okay, and then it's just a coupler and a bolt with a washer. Nothing fancy, $5 in parts. Hardware store. The whole system is just about 5.5 inches long. Okay. And I used that along with my favorite thing, leftover vinyl rubber flooring. And I also used this. Okay? So, if we open up the book to chapter 12, what we're replicating is this tool right there. We're replicating this tool to remove the timing belt tensioner, JD.50. Okay? So along with these 2 pieces, you also need a screwdriver. Just regular flathead, slotted flathead screwdriver. Okay, so let's go and take a look, see how all this goes together. Okay guys, so I'm going to show you guys how I used that hook tool before to release the tension on the cam chain. Okay, so this is just put in here for visual of where this gear sits while the cylinder head is installed. So envision the cylinder head's about this big, comes up to about the top of here, and there's just enough room in the cylinder head to slide this in, and there's a little hole that you put the hook into. Okay, so once you put the hook in there, I like to use rubber things, so I put the rubber pad on top of here. You got to be careful. You hook this in there and you pry up. Now, as you're prying up, there is, let's see if we can't get this off here. Okay guys, I want to show you guys a little bit more detail on what we're doing with the cam chain tensioner. So right in here is your cam chain tensioner access port. It's on the front of the block. Okay? And then there is the hole that you're going to attach the hook to, the big hole on the top there. So you got to be careful, because if you make your hook too long, it will hit the back side of this. See? You just want a little bit of a hook. So just enough hook to get it in there, and be confident that that hook's just enough hook to get it in there, and be confident it's not going to come out when you pull up on it. So as you're pulling up on this, you put your screwdriver into this slot right there, and you just spin that up. Okay? Now I'm not going to spin it up because I'm locked up already. So you twist it like you're unscrewing things. So counterclockwise twist. Okay? And then there's a little there is a locking pin mechanism. You see a little tiny pin sticking up out of the tensioner? So the other side of that pin gets fat. Okay? And so that's resting on the fat side. It's hard to tell. Okay? You can kind of sort of see right there. So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to lock that guiding pin up. That guiding pin there has a spring on it that's closing the tension. So once you lock that in place, you'll be able to take the cam out. Well, everybody, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Looking forward to getting more work done here on the car. With summer coming up, it's going to get real busy between trying to enjoy the outdoors and trying to find time to work on the cars and yard work. That's starting up here soon. So, but anyways, if you like what you see here, more videos to come. Also, the other channels I mentioned in the past that cover just Jaguar stuff is the Camp Chaos Chronicles. They're really good at helping you understand how to rebuild the engines and stuff. They get into real high-level detailed stuff. And then Living with the Classic, that YouTube channel covers a lot of the normal stuff that you would see. He goes into the maintenance he does on his cars and how to properly tune these things and stuff. So they're two great channels if you like Jaguar stuff. I personally, I'm not a Jag only kind of guy. It's just, I like the style of Jag XJS. It's the Jag I've always wanted to buy, so I went and bought one, and now I've got to deal with it. But after this car, then end of this year, I want to do another project where I build my daily driver, but that would probably be a Ford more than likely. So we'll see. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody, and have a good day. I'll see you next time.